Have you ever been in that space where you're just like so over things being hard or traumatic or difficult, and you just get to that point and you're just like, you know what? I just want it to be easy. Abundance is an inside job, and your intuition is the key to unlocking it all. Hello and welcome. I'm Rebecca Davison, founder of the Intuitive Life Academy, the leading place to develop your intuitive and psychic gifts. As an ascension guide and light leader, I'm committed to bringing you all the latest tools, developments, and the neuroscience available when it comes to the art of effortless manifestation. This show is for lightworkers and for those who identify that your intuition is your greatest guide to bring you happiness, expansion, and money. With my corporate banking background, you'll receive practical advice along with all the energetic tools that you can apply in your life today. So if this resonates with you, let's jump into the world of abundance and learn what it takes to experience true freedom. Hello and welcome folks, Rebecca Davison here, intuition coach, founder of the Intuitive Life Academy. You're listening to the Intuitive Abundance podcast, and today we're talking about limiting beliefs on episode 4. I'm excited to talk to this because this is a huge part of your makeup in terms of what you are able to receive into your container as a human that's choosing to manifest their reality on this earth plane, and to really look at our limiting beliefs, which are really consolidated thought forms that are being held in our subconscious. Thought forms that have been repeated, they've been given a lot of energy, so therefore they've been consolidated, and therefore it's dropped into your subconscious, and it's often driving a lot of your behaviors, a lot of your actions, and a lot of your attitudes that you have about not just about money or abundance, but about life in general. And this is really fascinating when you start looking at how human beings are constructed and realizing that we are very malleable, right? What we are exposed to when we are growing up, what our family believes, what our society believes, what our culture believes to be true, these can be a really big part of our belief systems. And of course, when it comes to our belief systems, when we have some emotion mixed in there, it can become even irrational. I have seen people have stand-up arguments for their limitations because it's so deeply embedded in their subconscious, and that they believe it to be true because it's being amplified by a feeling, like a feeling of proof or a feeling of evidence that this is true. But people in those circumstances can literally be arguing for something that goes against them. But because they feel they have this, container of proof, and it's in their subconscious and it's been inserted there, they can't often always see that what they believe doesn't actually serve them. And it's really only when we become an adult and we go to move outside of our comfort zone, out of those default set points that we hold inside ourselves, which are there, which have been, accumulated from our belief systems. And of course, are impacted by things like attitudes, behaviors, beliefs, and also things like trauma. It's only when we go to move beyond our set points or grow or expand or create more abundance, then we start feeling the rub, right? We start feeling that tension. We start feeling like, well, of course I want to create, more money and hold it in my energetic container and feel prosperous and abundant and fulfilled. But then, of course, we're starting to tap up against our limiting beliefs, and it can often feel like an invisible force field that is holding you back energetically. And it's only until we actually be accountable, be responsible, and start doing the inner work of tapping into the subconscious and asking ourselves, well, what is it that I do believe about money, about wealth, about abundance, that we start coming up against these limiting beliefs. And of course, there are a lot of very common money limiting beliefs, such as you have to work really hard to make money. That is a very common, generally held belief that a lot of people on the planet hold. The harder you work, the more money you will make. Notice the word hard. right? Who determined that it had to be hard as opposed to easy or soft, perhaps? But why does it have to be hard? Who determined that work has to be hard? We have this uncommon, common belief underneath that, which is not so commonly known, which is that if something is hard, then it must be valuable. Like if something is hard and we've overcome it, then there is more joy in the transcendence of it. So, and which can also lead into a lot of other beliefs in regards to having a breakthrough around money and having to be hard. Like when we hit through a money ceiling, that will be hard. Or if we expand our container, that will be hard. So we really want to take the time and the opportunity to start examining some of these beliefs and where they have come from and how they might be sitting in our subconscious. And to do that in a way, we can explore more of that shortly, but to really start understanding what happens as a child, right? You actually go through different brain waves, like different brainwave frequencies as a child. When you're born, you're in the delta brainwave, which is one of the slowest, right? It's 0.5 to 4 second cycles per second. So, you're sleeping a lot when you're a baby, right? You're in delta. This is a deep sleep state, really, for adults, which is, again, babies are sleeping a lot. You're not really in a, baby's not able to consciously process information and awareness the same way as an adult is. So, and again, even when your baby's in the womb, it's still receiving programming. As soon as a baby is, conceived, it's a living energetic being and it's going to be absorbing patterns, imprints, what mother believes, what it's like to be in this womb, in this body, in this country. All of the genetics, all the energetics are taking place as soon as a child is conceived. So you can be guaranteed that you have some beliefs or some energy, at least, around money as soon as you were born, right? That's going to be there because you're going to have imprinted it from your mother. Right? And again, when we start looking at it like this, it can be a little bit like, whoa, I haven't really started or spent time thinking about this. When we're a little bit older, like 2, 3, moving into about 6 years old, you actually move into the theta brain state. And theta, again, is very, very about the internal. It's really the realm of imagination, daydreaming. And this is why we often say the first 1,000 days in a child's life is really important. It's where they're shifting from delta to theta. They're learning about, their imagination, being open to energy, obviously, forming their personality. And, I've often seen it doing energy work where children make some really interesting decisions around 3 years old. And that's often because of that switch from delta to theta. They're becoming more conscious or becoming conscious in a different way. The theta wave frequency is 4 to 8 cycles per second. Got a mouthful around that. So again, starting to become, a little bit more conscious, a little bit more coherent with the frequency. And then between 5 to 8, children shift into alpha. And again, where the cycles are speeding up more. And this is the point where the analytical mind really starts to begin to form, right? Children are starting to become, they're drawing conclusions from their environment. They're starting to, they're still in that world of imagination still, but they're starting to kind of do a little bit more reality testing and kind of making more connections. And you think about the process of brain development, folks, it's all the synapses in the brain that are being wired and fired as we're a child. And again, depending on the environment, whether it feels safe, whether there is money available, whether there's not money available, all of those things are going to be included in this process of brain development for a child. And it's stuff that you do want to look at. You don't want to disregard this. You want to take it seriously and you want to do the research and look into it and investigate it, because I can be guaranteed on some level, the first 6 years of your life, especially first 7 years maybe, those are fundamental in regards to how you view life, whether you think the world is a safe place, what your home environment was like, and what your attitudes are towards money. Were your parents fighting about money when you were a child? Did you have money? Did you not have money? and some of these ways that these are wired can be beneficial and helpful, and other ways, depending on how we've interpreted it and the way it's been wired, can definitely not be helpful and can contribute to beliefs that do not serve us. And again, if that belief is kind of in some way connected to a sensation of trauma, then there's even more work to do really to be that psychic detective that goes, okay, I need to really look at anywhere I have felt traumatized around money, and it is definitely clear and present. For example, if you did not have enough money to eat, or there wasn't enough money to pay the power bill, so you had to sleep in the dark or come home in the dark, etc., etc. Not enough money to pay rent, ended up living on the street, for example. These can be very real fears that we can hold in our awareness, depending on what is happening, or what has happened for us as children. And of course, everybody's circumstance and situation is going to be difficult and different, and unique. But this is important for us to address within ourselves. To feel whole, to feel complete, to feel fulfilled, and to feel that we can move into greater and greater expansion with our money, we need to heal our trauma around it. And our trauma can come from the strangest places. In my work, I've seen people who have told me, I've heard a lot of stories, and I've been privileged really to witness and hear people tell me about things that have happened to them. And everybody is different in regards to how they process and deal with trauma. I've seen people who have had massive trauma compartmentalize, shut it down to try and make themselves feel safe, and they've treated it like it was no big deal. I've seen other people, by comparison, who've had much less trauma, have a much more difficult time with processing it. With being able, and again, there's no right or wrong, it's just everybody's different in regards to how they're wired. So people who've had less trauma, it could still have a massive impact in regards to how they're showing up, the choices that they're making, whether they're feeling safe in terms of growth, expansion, creating more abundance in their life. And again, we're constantly in that place, folks, of wanting to create a sense of safety and also wanting to expand. It's really the human dichotomy, isn't it? Wanting to feel safe, but also wanting to grow at the same time. And this is what's happening naturally, even as children, going through these different brain states. The last one really that we go to is, 8 to 12 and upwards, we move into the beta brain state. So really the crucial time is probably between the ages of 0 to 7 in regards to those different cycles that we go through, and really starting to think, and starting to ask yourself questions like, well, what was? Because often what will happen is people will be like, oh, I don't know. I wasn't really there. But this is the thing about energy. You are in what I call the quantum soup. So the environment that you're in, if you had a parent who was anxious about having children or providing for children, as a child, you can pick that up. If you have a parent who's anxious that having children is going to be really expensive and going to be a drain on the finances, you can pick that up. If you have a parent who's feeling uncertain about their job, or they lost their job, or they had their own business and, they lost the business, or they went bankrupt, those kind of things can impact you, your belief system, and your energy field. And it can be there in the cells of your body, because everything is energy. And when you're exposed to the energy, you on some way, shape or form are going to be imprinting it, exposed to it, feeling it, making decisions about it. If you had a grandparent who walked around and said, money doesn't grow on trees, money doesn't grow on trees, money doesn't grow on trees, as a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 7-year-old, you're hearing that in your environment, you're going to be making some decisions about it. You're going to be deciding maybe on a subconscious level, because this is the thing often with children, they might be able to feel the feeling, but they can't necessarily vocalize it. They can't put their finger on it and even identify it and say, I feel sad, or I feel happy, or I feel scared, or I feel concerned. They don't have the vocabulary for that really as a child, but they feel the feelings. And often for children, it's heightened too, because they're not in these different brain states, right? They're in a more impressionable brain state. Theta especially, it's very much the time where we want to spend time imprinting with children positive self-image and confidence and self-worth, all that positive psychology, so they do have a really solid standing as an adult. If that hasn't happened for a child, there's going to be work to do as an adult to come into balance and to come into healing. And of course, your money story is part of that. So how else can these limiting beliefs around money show up in your life? It can show up in terms of overgiving in the workplace. I've spoken to quite a few people who've worked in jobs where they've been doing two people's jobs and they're only getting paid for one. Expectations around doing overtime. So essentially they are overgiving and not being remunerated for that. I've heard other stories where people have been told, yeah, we'll give you a pay rise, and then it just never comes through. They just don't end up getting paid for it. And all of these things can come from the weirdest things, right? Like maybe as a child, you had a parent who, pinched money out of your piggy bank, said, I'll just take this money and I'll pay you back. So as an adult, you feel like people break their promises, right? People lie, especially when it comes to money. I had a circumstance once where somebody pretended to be me and drew money down out of my student loan. And it was the craziest thing. It just blew me away that A, it could even happen, and B, that person did it, and C, how could they think that they could do that? Because of course it got drawn down to my bank account. So I was like, where's all this money come from? Doing the detective work to figure it out, and then having the conversation with them and saying, what is going on? Why did you do that? Why didn't you ask me first at least? And then feeling frustrated because of course there was a drawdown fee and they weren't prepared to pay that. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. But that feeling too, right, of where we've been, where we're not being given to, where we're being taken advantage of, or where we're having these circumstances where, things aren't showing up the way that we want them to. Or again, we've got these subconscious beliefs that money's hard, that you have to work hard to create it, or even if you do work hard to create it, that it's hard to hold on to it, that if you want more of it, then somehow you must be greedy. That's a really common money belief. If I have more than I actually need, then I'm greedy, or it's greedy to want or desire more, because what would I do with it? If I'm getting all my needs met, then surely what do I do with it? Right? There can be some apathy even around that. There can be some really interesting, like if I have more money in my life and world, that I'm somehow going to become really ruthless, power hungry, dominant, unkind, mean, domineering. That money, the relationship with money is really, can be painful. I've seen it before where people are associating money, pain, because of family, where people have, and this can really hit somebody's value proposition, depending on what your belief system is, because a lot of people believe that money is love. So therefore, if there is a family member who has been given money as part of an inheritance, and there's another family member who hasn't, then people can believe that they are loved or not loved accordingly. And of course, that creates conflict in families when inheritance is not balanced, or when, one person's been cut out of a will. So therefore, the money's creating massive pain for that person in terms of the way they see their own value, or the value in terms of the person who's gifting the money. So money can be a real bone of contention, and this is why, and also too, and it can be so highly charged for people, it can be such a touchy subject because it is wired in our psyche to value. So when we're talking about money, people can even get triggered by these conversations because that it's tapping up against their value about how they see themselves. And I've seen this a lot when I worked in corporate. A lot of the guys, you could see that their value was associated with how much money they were earning. I make this much, so therefore I have this much value. Now that inherently is not true. Your value is beyond how much you get paid or what your salary is. But of course, we subconsciously can identify. We do it without even thinking. And this is how the ego likes to get involved, because of course the ego always loves to assign identity. This is who I am. I make this amount of money. I make 6 figures. I make 7 figures. This is who I am. And of course, as soon as we have the identity and the attachment to the identity, we end up creating duality and therefore suffering for ourselves. We're creating that disconnect. So how do we actually start doing the work of noticing and transcending our limiting beliefs? Self-inquiry. We start asking ourselves questions. We start going, okay, well, if I was looking at my parents or my caregivers, the people who raised me, that environment that I grew up in, what did everybody believe about money? What was a common belief? What did people say as throwaway comments about money? Or what did they joke about money in terms of, what was funny? Like for me, my grandfather always used to say, I've worked hard and I've played hard and I've enjoyed both. But there's still some hard in there, right? Working hard, playing hard. And again, these things can be throwaway comments, but we want to unpack them and go, okay, well, is that something that I want to do? Does that feel good for me? Is that a choice that I would make for myself if I was free and clear and independent of anybody else's opinions, agendas, behaviors? Is that something that I would choose for myself? What else did people say? What are the adjectives that you would use to describe your parents when it came to money? Often there can be one parent that is the saver and one parent that is the spender. Often there can be, often depending on the family dynamics, there can be one person who is, the person who earns it. And again, the person who spends it. Not always, but sometimes, especially historically speaking, because especially, way back in the 1950s, even as a society, it was much more well-defined, right? Men were the providers, the caregivers. They would go out, they would have the job, they would make the money, they would bring the money home, right? And the traditional female role as the head of the family, she would look after the children, she would look after the home. That's all changed, right? Since the 1960s and the sexual revolution, in terms of the advent of the pill and more equal rights for women having ownership over their own bodies, being able to make their own decisions, going into the workforce more, being able to determine that perhaps the man should stay at home and look after the children, all those things have changed so much. So therefore our relationship with money has changed a lot. There's still a few things that are a bit backwards, right? Because still on the planet, we still have this overriding kind of archetype, which is that men still make more money than women, especially in the corporate world. It's crazy. It's just mind-boggling that we're in, 2021 and this is still occurring, but it's still there. Granted, if you're self-employed, then there's no limits in terms of what you're able to create and receive, depending on your business model, of course. But starting to look at what is it that I believe is true for me when it comes to money. If I was sitting down and looking at what my brother believes about money, or my sister believes about money, or my parents believe about money, how much has that impacted me? What do I believe to be true about money? Now, here's the trick, right? Because your mind might tell you something like freedom for all, or equality for all, or I can make as much money as I would like. And then you might ask your heart, and it might have a completely different answer. And then you might ask your root chakra, which is all about survival, and that might have a different answer still. I did this with a client the other day, and it was really fascinating. I said to her, if you could receive infinite number of clients right now, what's the number of clients that you feel like you can bring into your life and world? And immediately she was like 6. And I said, okay, check in with your heart and then with your root chakra. Root chakra being at the base of your pelvis, all about connection to safety, survival, feeling safe in a body. All right, so she checked in with her heart. She got 4 clients. Checked in with her root chakra, 2 clients. Right? Because what's happening there, right, is there's a misalignment. Her mind's thinking, yes, that's what I want. Her heart's kind of feeling, oh, I'm not 100% sure. And then the root chakra is saying, actually, I don't feel that safe. So our job, right, is to come into alignment and to go, okay, what's going on that you don't feel safe to receive what it is that you want into your life and world? And that's why the key to all of this work is self-inquiry. We need to ask ourselves questions. To what level is it true for you that it's safe safe, right, and good to make as much money as you want to. Often what will happen with clients is I'll help them tune in and go, okay, is it 20 grand? Is it 30 grand? Is it 50 grand? Now, you could say that for a year, but if you're an entrepreneur, you could say, okay, am I going to make that in the next quarter? Or am I going to make that in the next month? Or am I going to make that in the next week? Again, if you've got your business model set up, it's really about your capacity to be able to receive, to put yourself out there, to make an offer and to receive it. Business in and of itself is not difficult, right? It's like finding a problem, solving that problem, and offering that solution to people. But all of it really comes back to our ability to be able to feel safe to receive it. And if we don't feel safe, then we will energetically block ourselves. And those blocks are formed often in our subconscious, especially between the ages of 0 to 7, in regards to what feels safe, especially in terms of money. Because if we have a fundamental belief that on some level that we are a victim around money, or that money is not safe, or that it's dangerous to make more of it, or if you do make more of it, then people are going to steal it from you, we will block ourselves from having that experience because we're trying to keep ourselves safe. And this is why we want to do the work of exploring our limiting beliefs. We want to be the psychic detective that goes, actually, I'm going to use my awareness, my intuition, to start looking inside of myself to go, okay, what is it that I do believe about money? What is it that I believe about my own value? One of the things that I help people with in my program, Profit Accelerator, is to help people to come into alignment with their values so they can make a high value offer so they can become profitable. Because if you're in business and if you're doing it the hard way, like if you're selling single sessions, if you haven't bundled your sessions at least, or you don't know how to sell a high ticket offer, you are inevitably going to end up feeling like it's a grind. Right? Because you're not going to have the cash flow that is supporting you to help you feel like there is a balanced exchange of energy. You're going to be scrabbling. You're going to be running fear, scarcity, or your adrenals are going to start getting tapped out because you're going to be in hustle and grind, wondering where the next dollar is because you haven't figured out how to do your business model in such a way that feels supportive, right? I mean, if you're selling something for $2,000, then you need 5 clients to have a $10,000 month. But what a lot of people do is they shrink to fit and they go, okay, well, this is what I think my offer is worth. And then they'll start selling, let's say it's an $800 offer, and they'll sell that instead of going, okay, what do I need to do to make it a $2,000 offer and have it be really juicy and attractive and a no-brainer for somebody to say yes to because it's offering that level of value. What people do is they go, oh, I think what I'm worth is only worth $800, so that's what I'll offer. And that's where people end up cutting themselves off at the knees, right? Instead of developing the confidence and the courage to up-level themselves, they shrink to fit because they are giving away their power in terms of what they believe their value is relative to what they believe somebody externally may or may not think. Okay, so it's a very different situation and scenario. And again, this comes back to belief. What does that person believe about themselves? They're believing what they're offering is worth $800. They are believing that that is the value of what they're offering. They might tell somebody something that changes their life forever, but they've decided on some level that that's what it's worth. Instead of kind of asking themselves to upgrade, asking their clients to upgrade, they're actually shrinking to fit. And we want to stop that, right? We want to have a balanced exchange of energy. And this, of course, asks more of us, but also asks more of our clients, that they show up, that they pay more attention, that they receive more, that they're more open to what it is that we're sharing with them so they can have the benefit of changing their life, of going through their own upgrades, of moving beyond their own set points. So that's what really, if you're a coach, healer, or a guide, that's what you're helping people to do. You're helping them to move beyond their own limitations. You're helping them to unravel anywhere they are holding limiting beliefs in their body and in their energy field. And we all know that emotion can get stuck in our body. It can manifest as physical pain. If you have aches and pains at the moment, folks, it'd be a good idea to ask yourself, is this physical or is it actually energetic? Is there something that is stopped, shut down, turned off in my body or energy fields that's actually holding me back from going into the next evolution of me. Because your body has a huge amount of wisdom. And this is why, again, through the intuitive pathway, we learn to listen to our body and to help our body to calibrate to where it is that we want to go and what it is that we want to create for ourselves. Super, super powerful. Body has wisdom. And your body too will tell you in regards to even your money ceiling. You can ask your body, hey body, to what level do you feel safe, comfortable to receive this amount of money now? And you can play around with it, right? You can do some timeline shifting and kind of go, okay, I can tell that my body feels safe and comfortable to receive $100,000 this quarter, but does my body feel comfortable to receive $100,000 in the next 30 days? Your body will give you information. It's really interesting when you do this with a timeline as well, and you bring the timeline in. Literally, people will have a physical reaction and they'll kind of go, no, stop, because that feels uncomfortable. So it's really fascinating. Your body has the wisdom, and it can show you where you're holding the contraction. It can show you which energy centers, i.e. also your chakra system, where you're holding the energy that is literally holding you back from receiving more. And our job is to work with our intuition to access the superconsciousness, pure source energy, to be able to access our subconscious and to find the information. Because that's the beautiful thing. The rational mind is the least powerful part of yourself. We need to go to source energy to be able to find these limiting beliefs, to be able to find these parts of us that are actually holding ourselves back from experiencing more, from experiencing why we even want to create a bigger container, why we want to experience more abundance. If you don't have a definite why, then it's going to be hard to move forwards. You're not going to have good GPS coordinates in regards to this is where I'm going. If you're living in the energy of hardship and you want to move away from that, what are you moving towards? What does it look like? And again, a lot of stuff about manifestation can be really simple, but we often need to expose ourselves to it over and over and over and over again, because it's almost like it's so simple that we need to make it more complicated. So therefore we'll feel like we've gone back to that hard thing again, right? Like if it's hard and I figure it out, then it's going to be more valuable somehow. And that of course is not true. It's really us. Really about us coming back to that place of going, okay, well, how much goodness can I handle? How easy can it get? How much flow can I create here before there's part of me that wants to kind of shut this down or turn it off because I'm thinking, oh, this is too easy. Or I need to complicate this, so therefore it's valuable again, or it needs to be harder than this. Have you ever experienced a manifestation and then you're like, wow, that was really easy. And then and then your brain gets involved and it's like, oh, I need to make it harder than that. I need to make it more complicated. And this is often how it can manifest as, I have to have a breakdown before I have a breakthrough. Often too, do you want to expand through joy, or do you want to expand through kind of even creating more trauma for yourself? And it's like, what would it take to be able to move through growth without having to go through some kind of contraction before there's expansion? And often it can happen that way, especially initially and especially to start with. We can kind of go, oh, it's feeling a little bit, things are feeling a little bit restrictive, a little bit contracted, and often that can be a sign that we're moving into more expansion. But ultimately it gets to a point where you're like, actually, you know what? I just don't want to experience any contraction anymore. I don't want to have to go through that process of feeling like things are hard before I go into the next level of evolution. I just want to be in that space where I can experience more joy, more bliss, increase the container, hold the energy and the value of money, know that I can create it, know that I can manifest it, and have fun doing it. Right? Have you ever been in that space where you're just so over things being hard or traumatic or difficult, and you just get to that point and you're just like, you know what? I just want it to be easy. So you get all the resistance comes up and you're just so over it because you're so tired of feeling the grind, the stress, the hassle, and you're just like, no, I'm going to drop the sadness, the anger, the fear, and I'm going to move into joy, and I'm going to choose to continue to manifest that way. So let's look at some of other limiting beliefs that can show up for people in terms of what it is that they're looking to create and why they're so important. Because literally, if you are not creating what it is that you want, if you're not calling in what it is that you want, you need to look obviously at your, like we've covered in the first 3 episodes, your thoughts. Are they working for you or against you? Your feelings, are you magnetizing in what it is that you want? And of course, your ability to be able to receive. Are you open to receiving it? Do you feel good about receiving what it is that you want? Can you receive a compliment? Can you receive $100,000? Is there any difference for you? What would it take for it to be that easy? And really coming back to this place of, if I've looked at that, if I've addressed that, and I'm still not creating what it is that I want, what else needs to be shifted, released, tweaked, let go of, upgraded for me to be able to shift into greater levels of manifestation? Because you're a creator being in a body. You came here onto the earth plane to experience creation. It's natural for you to want to grow and to expand and experience more of yourself. And of course, one of the ways that we can do that is through money. But if you've got junk on money, if you feel like money is the root of all evil, if you have ever felt guilty in relationship to money, maybe you've overspent something, maybe you've had parents, one of them was an overspender and the other one always felt like constantly in survival mode. Maybe you've ever felt guilty because you've cost your parents money. All of these energies, beliefs, thoughts, etc. can go into making up your current money blueprint, which is really the total of all the beliefs that you currently hold about money, about yourself, about your value, and about what is possible for you, especially doing intuitive work and just coming across people. I remember being so shocked at one point in time because I literally coming across people and they didn't even think it was possible to really live in high frequency energy. High frequency energy for me is like heaven on earth, right? Like living your dreams, literally. And it would blow my mind that people would be like, that's not even possible. Like that's not reality. Like you're in fantasy if you think that way, because they're being so practical and making it so hard and the energy's so heavy. Of course they don't have that reality. Of course they're living in a place where they're like, no, that's not possible. You're the one who's crazy for thinking that it is. And being so shocked about that, like, whoa, that person doesn't even think that it is possible for them, and finding that mind-blowing. Because, of course, when you break it down and you look at the laws of physics, they're just not understanding the science of what goes into manifestation. And I know, right? But this is the thing, the energies and frequencies are becoming more and more purified within us. We're shifting more and more into greater levels of awareness. We're feeling it in our bodies. We're experiencing the shifts energetically. You have to kind of be not just asleep these days, because there's so much that's happened in such a short period of time. It's not even about that anymore. It's probably you're experiencing resistance, because you'll be able to feel the energies in your body and in your awareness on some level. So if you're not in flow and you're experiencing that resistance, or you're experiencing things not working out for you, it's just literally something needs to be shifted energetically to get you back into flow. And that is often the belief systems that we have. Again, if we've grown up with somebody who was a big victim, if we've grown up and, feeling like we need to hold space for people, that's something that I've seen just recently in the last week in my coaching practice, people literally as children using their whole body, their whole energy field to try and keep other people, namely their parents, upright. If our parents aren't happy, naturally as children, we want to use our energy to hold them upright. We need them to be upright because we need them to do that so we can survive. And of course, our parents' money story becomes part of our reality. So it's worth investigating that relationship. It's worth asking the questions. It's worth asking the questions, what do I believe about money? What do I believe is true for me? Where am I limiting myself? Where do I believe this is not possible? Why do I believe it's not possible? Where is it possible that I could have formulated that belief? Because also when you start asking questions, you'll start seeing even more and more limiting beliefs, right? If your mind starts saying, oh, it's too hard to make that kind of money. Where does that belief come from? Why does it have to be hard? Yes, you have to apply yourself. And then, of course, all our fears can come up too, like I don't have what it takes, or I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I'm too left, or I'm too right, or I'm too something, all the too much. Right? Or what if I try and it doesn't work? Or what if I'm hopeless? What if I'm a failure? What if it does work? What would that mean? Right? And again, this is where all our stories can start popping to the surface, but this is great because then we have awareness. And when we have the awareness, we can do things differently. We can make different decisions. We can go, oh, wow, that's interesting that I have that thought and that belief. Now I can do the work to energetically shift it. And that's what I love about the work that I do. When somebody comes to see me and I can go, look at their body, look at their energy field and go, okay, this is interesting. I can see this pattern or I can see this connection here. And have you ever actually looked at it like that for yourself? And then they'll be like, oh, wow. And they wouldn't even think that those two things are connected. A lot of the time people come to me and they're like, okay, this is what's showing up in my reality or in my business and I'm not happy or I feel stuck or I'm in resistance. And then we shift the energy and things start to flow again, right? That's when it does feel safe to bring in new clients, or that's when it does feel safe to expand because we're back in flow, right? We've shifted the belief out of the way. And that's why it's super fun to do energy work, because when you break it down just as a science, just scientifically, you can't even take the emotion out of it. I mean, yes, we want to feel good, but we're not reliant on that because we know we're connected to source and we're an infinite being in a body, and we don't have to sit there and make ourselves feel good in every single moment of the day, because we're just doing the work to naturally be buoyant in our energy field, to naturally have a high vibration, to just be rather than have to do anything. Again, that's why doing the inner work is the most important thing to do, because you are going to get stuck and you are going to get stymied and you are going to block yourself and you're going to go into resistance if you have not healed your inner trauma. And we can all have trauma in regards to money. I literally know people who are like, I never got my pony as a kid, right? I really wanted a pony and it never happened. I literally know people who are still traumatized by that because it was something that they really, really wanted and they felt denied by that. So starting to look at all the nooks and crannies, right, in regards to how money is showing up for us, in regards to how we're showing up in relationship to money, looking at these limiting beliefs, starting to ask yourself, even out of the ones they've said, which ones resonated for you the most? Do you have some guilt around money? Have you shown up in a way with money that was like, oh, that wasn't too cool. I didn't make a good choice there, or I went out of integrity there. Maybe it's, this one's really common and probably not so popular because of it, where people take a job for the money, right? Where you literally are doing work just for money. That is soul destroying eventually, folks. To say to yourself, I have to do this because I need the money. And I know it is a big pattern on the planet. But again, this is how we end up being dissatisfied, being unhappy, realizing that we're not living to our values. And that can be really painful. If you're staying in a job because you believe you need the money, I would encourage you to take some of your money and do some work on your money beliefs, because you're choosing that and you get to choose again. You get to use your inherent intuitive awareness to create what it is that you want. And often, a lot of times, I think people feel really frustrated with the universe because they feel like they've been dropped off on the planet. There's no guidebook. The instructions really aren't that clear, like how to do this life thing. And then you kind of feel alone. And that's why, even the intuitive pathway for a lot of people can kind of feel frustrating. It's like, what? I have to tap into this inner resource and I have to figure out how the universe speaks and energy, frequency, and vibration. And then I can start listening to the whispers of my soul and going, okay, well, this is a good choice and this isn't a great choice. And it can feel, like if we don't have a guide, it can feel kind of a little bewildering. Ascension symptoms are for real, where people feel dizzy, they feel depressed, they feel like they're having a terrible time, they feel like, life is working against them, they feel like the universe doesn't support them, they feel like they don't get it. I used to say that to the universe once upon a time, many, many moons ago, quite a lot. Hey, guess what? I don't get it, because I was in resistance. I had a lot of energies where I wasn't taking responsibility for myself. I wasn't 100% accountable. I didn't get it on a deeper level that I was creating my reality, that the universe was inside of me, as opposed to me wagging my finger at the universe saying, you're not good enough, or you're not doing it properly, or you're not supporting me. It's like literally pointing your finger at yourself and saying, you're not good enough, you're not supporting me, you're not helping me. You are God in a body. So, in terms of your manifestation, your programming is going to determine your outcomes. So this is why we want to do the inner work to go, okay, and I do this all the time now, right? Like I've trained myself, because obviously I teach other people how to do this too, to constantly be aware of where I'm holding myself back, what I'm avoiding, what I'm not looking at, what's going on with that. Tell me some more information. Like show me what it is that I'm avoiding. Show me what it is that I'm not choosing to see right now. It's a really great question to ask your intuition anytime, especially about money. Where am I blocking my flow of money? Where am I not believing that I'm worthy enough to receive more? What's coming up for me? Asking these questions can change your life, and it can literally change the way that your money flows. I love it when people listen to my podcast and then they're like, hey, guess what's happened? Like I would listen to your podcast and I applied that, and guess what happened? Money showed up. I get so many notes and messages from people where they're like, oh my goodness, I felt like I was really in a jam, and then, I asked the universe for money and $200 turned out of nowhere, or $2,000 turned out of nowhere. Again, this is what can happen when we start working with these energetic principles. And a lot of the time, unfortunately, we can go into disbelief because our mind or our rational, the ego reflex can get in the way and go, you're making this stuff up. Or this is woo-woo. These are some of the worst things we can do to ourselves because it negates all the power we have, especially in terms of creation. We are working with physics, right? If you understand how it works through the quantum field, you can create what it is that you want, and you can have a lot of fun doing it, and you can grow and expand through joy rather than having to do it through suffering. And it's way more fun to do it through joy, right, than it is to do suffering. The irony being that, if you are doing it through suffering at the moment, there's probably some part of you that's actually getting a bit of a kick out of it. It might not feel that way, but from a higher perspective, there's part of you that's probably on some higher frequency level enjoying the experience. It's like, oh, this is interesting. This is what contraction feels like. This is interesting. This is what suffering feels like. This is interesting. This is what pain feels like. You get to choose, and people don't understand how much power they have in regards to flipping that lid in any single moment. What you focus on expands. So if you shift your focus from pain, fear, contraction into freedom, pleasure, and abundance, like you can in any given moment because it's a choice, that's how you change your reality. You change your frequency, you change your energy flow, you change what's going to happen next because you're doing the work to focus your attention and get the energy flowing the way you want it to go. So folks, we've talked about limiting beliefs today, some of those really common ones, that it's really hard to make money, or starting a business is hard, or I don't have enough value to offer other people, etc., etc. They're all limiting beliefs, and they can all be healed, they can be shifted, they can be released, and a lot quicker than you give yourself credit for. Often our rational mind wants to figure it out. It can end up trying to figure it out, going into a loop of an energy indefinitely. That's why energy work is so powerful. Once you clear the energy, it's gone. It's gone for good, right? Unless you choose to bring it back in again. But once you release that and you have an awareness of it, and you know why you've picked it up, and you know why you're carrying that energy, and you know what benefit you believe it's serving you, once you have that awareness, it can be super powerful in terms of shifting things around for you. So I'm going to leave you with that today. If you want to know more information, folks, or if you want to start your abundance journey, do go to theintuitivelifeacademy.com and sign up there for your ideal future self activation, which is really the process of activating abundance and energy within you and understanding the true source of your wealth. Love to have you come and check that out. The other thing you can do, of course, is join us in the Facebook group, which is the Intuitive Life Academy, Creating Profit for Light Workers with Rebecca Davison. You can find that on Facebook. I am sending you so much love and many, many blessings. I hope you're choosing to expand your wealth container every single day, make yourself aware on what it takes, and put this information into practice. Nothing happens until something moves. That was Einstein. He said that. And that's what we need to do. We need to take the information and apply it, show up, and integrate it until we get to that point where our manifestations are effortless, because it's part of who we are. We've programmed ourselves to just keep on expanding. And again, I'd love to invite you into that because it is so much fun. I'm sending you so much love and many, many blessings. Bye for now, folks. Bye. Thank you for joining the Intuitive Abundance podcast today. If you've enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe and write us a review so we can help other people positively impact their lives. I would really love that. If you're ready to activate the energy of abundance within you, then be sure to go to www.intuitivelifeacademy.com to sign up for our abundance activation process. Until next time, here's to your ever-increasing freedom. All my love. Bye for now.